Hey everyone, welcome and thanks for tuning into LCC Remix, where we unpack the latest message in a deeper way. We hope this episode encourages and speaks to you.
Welcome back to another episode of LCC Remix, where we are continuing our current series, Into the Wilderness.
God in the wilderness.
Not into the wilderness, God in the wilderness. Thanks for correcting me.
Hey, no problem.
You think I'd remember what the series titles were?
I think
our last one was Christ Culture Church, right? Or Culture Church Christ.
No, you're right.
Christ Culture Church.
Okay.
First,
yeah.
That's like, see what I mean?
Yeah. I think you were thinking about that show on the History Channel or something. Into the Wilderness.
Into the Wilderness, yes.
With Stephen Lee Forrester.
Yeah. Felt a little bit like I was in the wilderness a little bit this weekend. But anyway, you were speaking on Elijah this week. Take it away, Pastor Greg. I'm just going to be real quiet this morning.
Oh, goodness. I don't like this part. Elijah, what a guy.
I think that's what Elijah means in Hebrew.
Yeah. What a guy.
No, it does not.
No, it's I think the main point of that whole thing is God used him in such a mighty way in the story of Mount Carmel with it not raining, with the widow and her son, and just incredible. Boy, any one of those would you would get pretty excited, and he had like the trifecta of victory, and it comes right off of that. Facing, all those, the prophets of Baal and...
the 450 stands them down, right?
Yeah, and then there was 400 prophets of Asherah there too. They're not mentioned later for some reason, but just the 450 prophets of Baal. And goes through all this and then outruns a chariot back to Jezreel, which is kind of wild, and then is afraid of Jezebel and runs for his life. And, it's just, that story is just so interesting because, you think, how could it possibly be? But the human condition, you come off something, the victory like that, you're spent, you're, whatever. And, you're vulnerable, which it seems counterintuitive, but you're, and so he gets scared and just runs for his life, and actually asks God to just take him out, get it over with. And in that whole story, there's this how God just so gently deals with him, I think, is just amazing. And I love just the candors, like Elijah, what are you doing here? He's like, what? Huh? Yeah. And I just think that's it's just so interesting. Just the I don't know, almost just the plain language of just hey, what are you doing here? Why are you here? And then through the don't mean to recount the story, but then the violent wind, and then and then the earthquake, and then the fire. And God was not in any of those, and it comes down to a still small voice, and God just, it's almost like God had to do all those things to get his attention, to bring him back to that still small voice. And I think that's the key to that. And then he could talk to him and tell him what to do. Mm-hmm. So he was either, caught up in his anxiety or fear or just the whatever of coming off all those things, with the prophets of Baal and everything. And, and then, God had to bring him back to that place he could actually talk to him again. Mm-hmm. And I just think it's cool. Just God was so gentle with him. And so, finally got to, got him to the point again, hey, why are you here? Mm-hmm. What are you doing here? Mm-hmm. And then he goes, well, God, he goes, no. He goes, it's fine. Listen, you go down there, go do this. I'm with you. Oh, by the way, I've got a lot of people with you too. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of people waiting. So, Just a neat story, but I think it explores the depth of the relationship and the tenderness of God, and that, the idea was the renewal in the wilderness, and that renewing that comes in that relationship with the Lord. And it's just neat. I don't know how to, it's pretty powerful.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Well, thank you for joining us today on that.
Well, I guess if you haven't taken the time to kind of get out of the noise, to get out of, it's funny how when I don't know, maybe it's not like this for you guys, but I feel like when I'm at home, there's always something that either has to be done or something I'm thinking about or something that is taking up my time, and not just my time, but my headspace as well. Mm-hmm. And it becomes at some point just a bunch of noise that's just there. Yeah. And it can't go anywhere. And I don't know, because I love the wilderness, you get out there and there's nothing, your phone doesn't work, except for your sat phone, and there's not any distractions per se. And I think we need that for that renewal that you're talking about, not just our spiritual renewal, which is important, obviously, but our physical renewal and our emotional renewal, like just getting out there. I don't know where the Trace was this weekend, but, being able to just step away for a minute.
Outside of Culpeper out there. I think it's where you were.
Farm.
Bring the farm, back there. I forget the name of the town. Yeah.
Yeah, I was at our farm retreat, which is my in-laws' house, for a couple of days at the end of last week. And even there, like just being able to go out at night and just the sky is full of stars because there's not a lot of light pollution there. And it's pretty amazing how quickly that renewal can happen, if we choose to step away. And I feel like so many people just never step away. Right. Just constantly in the noise, constantly in the noise.
It's interesting for me. It's almost different because I have that. The quiet is in my office at home. And when I go outside, I'll go outside. I sit on my deck a lot in the back, in his woods, and I got my birds back there, the chickens and turkeys and stuff. And it's just so loud.
It is loud.
Well, then all the crickets and all the cicadids or whatever, and just all the. And I'm like, oh my gosh!
When you call me, and I could tell when you're sitting in your backyard because all these weird sounds.
Yeah, all the turkeys and stuff. And every time you cough or sneeze or something, the turkey makes a noise because you think he's talking to you. But even just the insects. I was out the other night, and it was right at dark or just after dark. I took the dog out. And so we're out there just chilling for a little bit, and I'm like, it is so noisy out here. Yeah. I'm gonna go back inside where it's quiet, But it's interesting.
Mm-hmm. Some of the fire, the earthquake, the wind, some of those big things had to be big to shake him out of the loud voices inside his head, right? Because, like you said, he's coming off these victories. He basically walked around fearless because he, trusted God, but it just shows how just fragile like our souls are, that it just, if the right thing is said, if the right thing, is what gets in, it can completely deflate your whole, your whole self. Right. Yeah. And that's what he's hearing. And he's obviously trying to escape it, the physical side of it. But it's just so, when you get to a point that you have doubt, it is so loud that it took those crazy things to happen to shake him out of it so that he could hear the still small voice. It just really shows how we can get in our heads and really block everything else out, because we're so caught up in ourselves and what's going on in our head. Mm-hmm.
Well, just imagine that day there at Mount Carmel. You have 450 just of the prophets of Baal. I don't know if the prophets of Asherah were doing anything or not, but screaming for 8 hours. Okay? Seriously,
cutting themselves, calling out,
just acting crazy. And just that noise all day. And then you're on, this has never happened with Elijah before, calling fire out of heaven. I'm sure God told him to do that, yes. But still, there's still that edge of, expectancy and all those things. And then knowing, at any moment, because with Jezebel, and she was killing the prophets of Israel, the prophets of Jehovah, and so he's there by himself, and so you have that edge, and then coming off this thing, just incredible. It's a spiritual high, or and you can see where you could really slip into something like that, and then the fear take over, and it's just it's something, just how God was so gentle with him, though, and I think that's the cool part. He was just so gentle with him, and he was exhausted. He lays down under a tree, so it was bad enough for him to leave his servant, and then he ran into the wilderness, another day's journey. So that's another 20 miles. A day's journey was about 20 miles. And so, he's trying to get to a place where no one can find him, and he's exhausted. He lays down under a broom tree and falls asleep, and then, the gentleness of God. Hey, if you're, someone tapping him on the shoulder, hey, here's some food for you. Yeah. And then he eats and he falls back asleep. He's still exhausted. And then once again, he's woken up again. And, here's, you need to eat some more, build, physically, and that must have been, quite a meal.
Yeah, right. Right, sustains them for 40 days.
40 days, yeah. So, but just neat stuff. But there's such a neat lesson there.
This is just unrelated and kind of stupid, but I was thinking about, nowadays people always talk about a Jezebel spirit that people have. I wonder what they said about her. Like, you have a you spirit. What do they call it? You have a you spirit.
Yeah, actually, so I'm teaching through.
Revelation talks about that Jezebel.
Yeah. I forget which church. Not is it Laodicea? Yeah, Laodicea, Church of Laodicea. The Jezebel, spirit of Jezebel's there, and leading people into immorality and stuff. And what a wicked woman. But she does. I won't tell you, but she meets a grisly end. So you might want to read the story. It doesn't end well for Jezebel. So what do y'all think about the earthquake and the wind and all that stuff? How,
About the earth, wind, and fire?
Oh, there you go. Yeah. Wow.
That's where they got the name from. I don't know. Just kidding. Who knows? Maybe.
Maybe, yeah.
What do we think about that?
Why would God do something like that? Why would he have to, God's voice could be loud enough to hear, but I was trying to, I don't want to make too much of it because that wasn't the point, but I think there's a lot more there when it says, and God caused the wind, and it was a fierce wind that broke the rocks,
mountain apart.
So we're talking that's pretty serious.
Yeah.
But then it says, but God was not in the wind, and I feel like there's more to that. Then there was an earthquake, but God was not in the earthquake, and then there was fire, but God was not in the fire. God used those; He sent those, but I feel like there's more there, and I didn't get to the bottom of it, but
I wonder if it's not what you were talking about, how he comes so gently that it's really making the point of contrasting how he could have reached him. He could have beat him over the head. He could have shook him until he woke up. He could have made him so hot and uncomfortable until he, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That is just such a huge contrast with that's not the way God's going to do it. Yes, he's using it. Yes, it's an attention getter. It is a, again, breaking you out of the loudness in your head, but that's not how he wants to relate with you. That's not how he wants to, talk to you and build you up, inspire, change, or, direct you.
Yeah.
He's not going to grab you by the back of the neck and lead you around. Right.
Yeah.
He's just going to call you to come to him, kind of thing. So maybe it's a big contrast.
Yeah. What do you think?
No, I'm still, like, in my mind, when you read that story, you try to process through all of you talked about the victories in your message on Sunday, but you try to work your way through what brought him, I mean, seriously, other than the words of, what led him to it was despair.
Yeah.
It was a lack of hope. And I've never really been able to get a really good answer for that. Because you have the people, because he says it's in what 1 Kings 18, right?
Yeah.
He says, basically challenges the people about their heart, right? Mm-hmm. If Baal's God, follow him. If the Lord is God, then follow him. And and he says that God is turning your hearts back to him. So you have the people finally rising up and doing God's will. You have the prophets of Baal put to death. You have all these supernatural things going. You have the end of the 3.5 year or 3 years of
3.5 years rain, dead drought. Yeah.
And then you have all these things. And like you said, I haven't been able to work in my mind, like, okay, what exactly, other than what was it about her statement? Because if you just experienced all of this, her statement should be absolutely meaningless to you. Like.
Yeah.
And I've never been able to wrap my head around that. So I'm not much help when it comes to that. I mean, other than I think God obviously teaches us a lesson through all that.
Yeah.
That, yes, coming off, and you talked about it on Sunday, coming off great victories. I don't know who said it, a little bit different way of looking at it, but like it takes a person of incredible character to survive repeated seasons of success.
Yeah.
And so, I don't know, but I don't know what switched in his head, because God kept you alive the entire time through drought. He fed you with ravens. He's provided oil and flour for the widowed Zarephath. There's like all of these things, and I don't know.
Yeah.
Even at Mount Carmel, you stand on Mount Carmel, you look to the west, and you can see the edge of the Mediterranean Sea. So when he describes it, and it's very green there, like it's very green on Mount Carmel, but you can imagine at the time of the drought, everything was just dead. The valley behind you, which is the Valley of Megiddo. It's where the Battle of Armageddon takes. It's on the other side of Mount Carmel. So you look down, there's all this lush green there right now, but imagine it's all just dead. And when you look out to the west, you can see the sea, but he had a front row seat as he's praying, and his servant sees that cloud rise. It was one thing after another, and I can't wrap my head around what happened in him. And maybe we're not supposed to get the answer to that, because we all we can have spiritual victories and then feel very defeated, feel very deflated. And that's when we need to see God in that, or hear God in the still small voice, which Scott, you alluded to, relationship, right? It isn't always the big things, and maybe he needed to come back to the fact it's just relationship.
Well, I think that's part of the lesson there is we tend to look for that earthquake. When it see God move, and all the time he wants that relationship to be that still small voice. And we're looking for the big thing, for the next big move of God or whatever to jump onto. And it's not, he wants that relationship all the time with that still small voice. So I do think that is a lesson in that.
Yeah.
Yeah. It is hard to understand how the switch flipped, right?
Yeah.
But I think that you can be very confident and not even taking that further to like arrogance. You can be very confident in something, and someone can say something that it's not even necessarily what they said. It can trigger something in you that brings self-doubt or self-condemnation, and that's the place where you get stuck. It's not even, the comments. I mean, you could have a 1,000 people saying, barking at you, and you can still be fine. But it's once you have that switch flipped inside you where you're doubting yourself. Yeah. It's the self stuff that gets you in the hole. I mean, that's what we battle trying to get out of, is getting past yourself and just back to relying on him.
So here's a question for pastors that no one ever talks about. After a good Sunday, do you ever have a rough Monday?
It's almost always going to be the case.
Guaranteed.
Yeah. What do you got to define a good Sunday.
Yeah.
Usually, I mean, your Sunday afternoon might go sideways.
Oh yeah.
Or you find yourself almost depressed.
Yeah, depression or doubting or whatever.
Every day.
Yeah,
every day. I doubt myself.
Yeah,
you guys don't. Every day.
Oh no, especially on Mondays.
Especially
Monday seems to be the hardest day.
Yeah, I mean,
that's why typically
sit on the
pastors take
shore
off
of the bay or something and just stare out at the water. Be like, what am I doing? Like, what's happening here? Like, why?
Where's that still small voice?
Yeah. It's interesting, though. I was thinking about the parallels between, because all those things, that the wind, the fire, the earthquake, those are all signs of divine action, right? They're all signs of God's presence. I mean, we see it in the New Testament, in the book of Acts. You see the mighty rushing wind, the sound of a mighty rushing wind, and you hear flames of tongues of fire. And we see repeatedly where they would pray, and the earth would be shaken underneath of them. When Christ was crucifixion, there's an earthquake. So again, it goes back to God was teaching something Elijah in that moment. Like, okay, you may have seen in the past that I was in the wind, and I was in the fire, and I was in the earthquake, but right now you need to know that I'm here with you. Like, I'm this still small voice here ministering to you. And we all need that idea that God is, to say God is big is the understatement of the centuries, but he is so big, but yet he wants relationship with us. That to me is mind blowing.
Yeah, and it's the quietness too that's so interesting. The quiet moments, and that's why I did mention Sunday that a lot of people are afraid of quiet. They have to be entertained all the time, or always have noise or whatever, because it sits still in their own thoughts.
Aaron was talking about noise,
It's scary, because always. That's why people fall asleep with the TV on, or they always have to be something to keep their mind occupied. And God wants to be in those quiet times, And so that's an important discipline or whatever to. As a believer, to spend those time, have that. We call it quiet time, but have that time where you're just alone with God and hear His voice, and not look for the big earthquake or the big excitement. It's all part of the lesson. Mm-hmm. And there's renewal.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a long,
we're just
dramatic
quiet today.
It's a tough lesson to learn.
Yeah.
I mean, you go to James and read. Elijah was what? A man just like we are, and talks about his prayer. And talks about things God did, and I think sometimes we are expecting God to move in these big, grand ways, but again, it goes back to relationship.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which he certainly doesn't need to have a relationship with me. I can tell you that.
Oh no.
You know what I'm saying? Like, like
the mercy of God, mercy and grace.
Sometimes you just need a nap and a snack, right?
Yeah.
Like Elijah. Are you sad?
Yeah, that's another good lesson.
Eat a sandwich, take a nap.
That's another good lesson.
You'll wake up feeling better.
Except on Sunday afternoons, I just feel like I'm in a coma. Yeah.
I want to get your insulin levels checked. You eat Sunday afternoon and you're like, ugh. That's not a good sign.
Yeah.
Body shutting down.
Or you're on high alert all morning.
Yeah. No, I get it. Believe me, I get it.
It's a drive home that's like, anyway.
Some Sundays that you feel like there's like 5 weighted blankets on top of you. Like I'm trying to walk.
Yeah.
I'm like, why do I feel like I'm 800 pounds? You ever feel that? Like no, you don't feel that? Okay. It's just my crippling depression. It's good to know. Oh. Anything else?
I don't think so.
Aaron? I don't know. No, I think the story kind of speaks for itself, and I guess what is happening, I guess, through this series, like you said, Sunday, we've got a lot of responses, and I feel like a lot of people, and probably including myself a little bit, like have not recognized until it's kind of put in front of you that you're in the wilderness.
Yeah.
Like we feel like I'm just pushing through. I just got to keep, and at some point you have to stop and think like, okay, what's happening here? Like, why is there this weighted blanket on me? Because people feel that like all the time. Like, I'm doing the stuff I've always done. I'm going to work. I'm raising my kids. I'm, doing all these things, and yet there's this weight on me. And that. I think the recognition that, man, I'm in a wilderness season, and it may not necessarily be a spiritual wilderness season. It may just be a wilderness of like, I've lost a little bit of direction. I'm not sure where my life is kind of headed career-wise. I'm not sure where my family's going. How do I better raise my kids? There's all of these different areas that we could be in the wilderness. But so often, our mindset, I don't know if it's as Americans or just as people, is to just push through. Like, if I can just push through, like, we call it a manic Monday. Like, I'm going to just move past Monday. And once I get past Monday, I'll be okay. And then all of a sudden it's Thursday and I'm not okay. But I think that one of the great things about a series like this is for many, it's like, wow, I resonate with that, because I'm realizing that I'm in a wilderness place, and then begin to look for that renewal, or be looking for, what is this preparing me for, or looking for, what is the purpose of this?
Yeah.
Because we tend to, sorry, I'm on a soapbox a little bit, but we tend to put these, like, our secular box and our spiritual box, and the reality is that it's all one, So when I'm struggling physically or emotionally, it still has a spiritual effect on my life. And while I'm struggling spiritually, it has an emotional and physical, so it's all intertwined, and we so often want to separate them into these different boxes. And the more we try to do that, the more I feel like deeper into the wilderness we actually get, because we want to, I don't know if it's because we want to feel like I'm okay with God, because I've done the church, the spiritual stuff, I'm doing my quiet time, I'm reading through the Bible, I'm, helping needy when I can, I'm at church regularly, and yet I'm still feeling this emptiness or this lack of direction or lack of purpose. And maybe it could be because I've separated all of these things into their own box, and I really just need to realize that God is in all of it. Like you talk about the still small voice, like God's in all of these things that are happening in my life. And so my relationship with Him is affected by my relationship with others, and my relationship with others is affected by my relationship with Him. And it's just kind of it's just intertwined, and we tend to want to put it in its own box.
Yeah. I think one thing this whole series is, for me, is I think it really points to that God uses the wilderness. He allows us to be in the wilderness to get us to the point I mentioned Sunday, to get us to where we're desperate enough to hear from Him. Where we become unsettled, and when we're not sure, and we're doubting this and whatever, and but to where we're we're finally to that point where we can actually hear that still small voice. Because we do get caught up in all this stuff. We get caught up in life. We get caught up in the ambition or the drive or just the stuff. And I think God uses the wilderness experience to, like with Moses and, here with Elijah and different ones, to get us to that point where we're actually ready to listen, where we can hear. And usually that involves some being uncomfortable in some way, because when we're super comfortable and entertained and we don't listen, that's just human nature. And so he allows us to go through the wilderness, to wander a little bit, and to, to get us to that point where we'll actually listen to him. We'll hear that still small voice. And it's really interesting. There has been quite a response. I've talked to a number of people, and I'm sure everybody else has, where, it's just God is working in them and doing, and bringing them to that point to listen, to hear. And talked to somebody at Sunday, and just the struggles they're going through and the uncertainties, and just kind of can't find a direction, and it's like, well, you are in the wilderness right now, but look what God's done in your life through this. He's refining his relationship, or your relationship with him. There's other things that were so important are falling away. He's bringing to that place where you are that place where you can hear his voice, where he's working in your life. And, those things those weights, those things that you were dragging around, they're starting to fall off. And so that is a wilderness experience. That's when God gets your attention, so embrace it, because God loves you that much to allow you to go through that. To speak to you, to get you that point. He chastises those he loves. And sometimes he does that in the wilderness. And I think Moses was a perfect example. Moses was all gung-ho. I'm going to save the world, I'm
going to watch that Egyptian right there. One down, 5 million to go.
One at a time. If I do one a day. But yeah, went from that, the palace, to, the desert, as a shepherd, to hearing God's voice, to being used by God, And so I think we see that same pattern in all of our lives at some point, in some way. But
talking about, being uncomfortable, and like you said, Aaron, about we just have a tendency to just push through. So it's interesting that it takes, it's like anything. In order for something to change, something big has to happen, because we will push through, and we'll be okay being a little bit uncomfortable. If I don't have to change what I'm doing, it's okay. I could take a little discomfort as long as I don't have to change what I'm doing. But it's not until you get to that big, like, oh man, now I have to change.
Yeah, that's where the desperation comes in,
right? Which, I have a hard time understanding anyone being able to get to the point of accepting Jesus without having something like that. Yeah. Without getting to the end of yourself first. Yeah. I know it happens. He can speak to people however he wants. But yeah, for me, it's hard for me to even understand how it could happen, because I literally had to die to myself in order for it to happen. But it's kind of funny in the story with the earth, wind, and fire, with the big things, but it was the little, it was the quiet that, got his attention. And when you were saying earlier, Steve, about, these, wanting to see the big stuff, how many times, does Jesus talk about, if you're entrusted with a little, you get big? And I think when we're pushing through and we're dealing with these things and being a little uncomfortable the whole time, we just think we can handle it. At any point in that journey, you can be asking for, God, what are you trying to tell me here? Let's deal with it when it's a 2 instead of waiting until it's a 10. But we just, there's something in our nature that we resist that, because of the change that it's going to bring. But there's zero reason why you can't, and especially the closer you are in relationship with him, the more likely you are to be able to, to ask. Like, so I don't know.
I think it's a pride thing most of the time. Because we're, my head will not be, with unbowed and not broken, all those, And so God has, and he does. That's Moses' problem was pride when he was in the palace.
Yeah.
And he had to literally sit around and watch sheep eat and, do their thing for 40 years to finally the pride was out of him so he could hear God's voice. And we see that in Joseph.
Everyone. Yeah.
When, all those people, all those guys went through all those things because God had to get that, because pride is something that, man, who could understand that? But pride is something that just blinds us to who we are, to how we, correct thinking, all that. It really gets in the way, and it's the plague of mankind. It's how it all started with Satan. I will be like the Most High. I will ascend, all those things. And that's the one thing. It doesn't matter where you're at either. That's a crazy thing. You could be down and out and so full of pride that you refuse.
That can become a point of pride for you. It's a false humility.
Yeah. And so it doesn't matter where you are on the scale. That's an issue. And so that wilderness experience, and God told Elijah to say there no rain. Well, why would God do that? To get people to where they're desperate. That's the whole point. Okay, you're gonna follow all these false gods. You're gonna do all this crazy stuff. You're gonna do whatever. Okay, let's see how you handle that when the drought comes. Who are you gonna call on then? When you're a meal or two away from death, who are you gonna call on then? And so God does those things for our benefit. To bring us to that point and go, oh yeah, I'm sorry, I really got off track here. You are God. And that's over and over all through Scripture, and happens in our lives too. But to your point, you don't have to go through that. You just humble yourself in the sight of the Lord.
Right.
Early on in the process, you avoid a whole lot of problems.
This is random, but I hadn't thought about what you just said with Moses watching sheep for all that time. I'm just trying to imagine, like, what the thoughts inside his head from day one of,
oh my gosh,
to day 1,000 to 40 years later, and how that shifted, like how fast some of the changes were, how long it took him to really drop those thoughts that it's really like bondage inside his head, for that it took 40 years to get to the point of humility that he could be used.
Yeah. Used. And Moses, the story Moses was just amazing. The whole story of Moses is incredible. What God did with that man. But but we see that pattern over and over again. And it's the mercy of God.
Yeah, one of the things you said that resonated on Sunday was, that you can't take your slavery into the promised land.
Yeah.
Like you just said, Scott, like we want to, that bondage that we want to, for whatever reason, we almost hold on to it, And in that scenario, so drastic that nobody over the age of 40 ever even saw the promised land.
20,
over the age of 20, other than Joshua and Caleb. We're the only ones to actually experience the promised land, because that whole generation just, it's kind of hard that they were entitled in their slavery, but they held on to it and held on to it and held on to it. And how often, in our world are we holding on to something so strongly that God isn't able to use us like he could use us, because we're just holding on to that bondage, that slavery, that's just that, may or may not be sin. It may just be something that's holding us away from him.
Well, yeah, it could be your identity.
It's exactly what it is. It's your identity.
Yeah, you're, and that's a scary lesson. And so here's I'll paint a scenario for you that terrifies me. Laying on my deathbed and having a realization of what I missed out, with God and with whatever, but especially in a relationship with God, because of my own stupid ideas or my own opinion or my own pride.
Mm-hmm.
You know, how horrible would that be? Before you slip into eternity, you realize, you realize I've wasted so much. I've missed God because of my own stupid ideas. You know, and what are they worth now?
Yeah. And it is it is pride. I mean, when you're talking about identity, that's linked to pride. I mean, otherwise, why would you need to say it or claim it? You know what I mean?
Yeah, but there's a real lesson there, and it's shocking. It's shocking that God would pick all those people out of Egypt.
Yeah,
and just imagine what the 40 years were like.
Yeah,
how many funerals there were.
Yeah. Oh.
Along the way.
More than 1 million.
What's that?
Like more than 1 million.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
I mean, there were some that just got swallowed up.
Well, yeah, there's a whole family.
There was some of that.
Right.
I don't know if they had a big funeral for that.
No.
Well, the other part about that, you said it on Sunday, is it was an 11-day journey, right?
Yeah.
So it should have taken them less than 2 weeks to make that journey.
Yeah. But they had to.
And
God,
again,
God had to work in them.
Why do we keep turning left? It's right there. I thought I said maybe on Sunday to you that I never thought about it before. Yes, you have this generation that falls away that can't enter. But the ones coming in, they're like, hey, the promised land. Wait, now we got to make our own food? What? Yes. What is this?
Right, exactly.
Yes. Oh, but apparently
you got to take it little by little over a long period of time.
Well, it was the land flowing with milk and honey, so apparently it wasn't an issue.
Yeah, right.
The guys went in and got the cluster of grapes. They had to carry a cluster of grapes between two of them. Yeah, so that was
There's so much in the Old Testament that's hard to wrap our mind. I mean, these people had eaten manna for 40 years, and they go into a land with milk and honey, and all they see is the giants.
It's human nature, though.
Yeah.
We 95% of wonderful, awesome things could happen in your life, and you're going to focus on the 5 that's wrong.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just the way we're wired because of our sin nature.
Yep.
Well, even something simple. It says their sandals didn't wear out.
Yeah.
Right.
So there was no Walmart, and your clothes. And for 40 years, you wandered around, and your clothes, your sandals never wore out. All your stuff was fine at the end of that 40 years. And just that's crazy. And I have to think, because I'm a little nutrition nerd or whatever, but I have to think that the manna was really, really good for you. And all these people were like uber healthy, except for the ones that died. I don't understand what happened there. But just imagine, you imagine how many funerals there were a day for 40 years as that generation died off. And then you have these kids coming up who some of them, obviously alive when they left Egypt, but they were still young. They can be shaped, and God was shaping these people and forming them, and to be ready to enter the promised land and to be His people. Of course, they got way off track later. That's why we're talking about kings, but it's pretty wild story. Read the Old Testament. Read the Old Testament.
Yeah, it's the word. I mean, we only call it old in reference to the new covenant, the old covenant, new covenant, but old doesn't mean get rid of it.
No. I like what Chuck Missler said. If you could tear one page out of your Bible, tear out the page between the Old and New Testament, because it's all one book. Mm-hmm. It is all one book.
You'd want to keep the rest, is what he's trying to say. Don't just tear that out and be like, this is all I need. This blank piece of paper. This dividing paper.
That's the one you throw away.
Yeah, right. Well, if there's no other thoughts on this at the time, we'll go ahead and wrap it up.
Yeah.
Next week, we're continuing our series, God
in the wilderness.
Not
into the wilderness.
Into the wilderness, which is where I am.
The sequel to Alone or whatever. That
Yes,
History
Alone.
Channel thing.
Yeah. Very good. All right. Well, God bless you. Thanks for listening.
Have a good day.
Thanks for listening to LCC Remix. If you have any questions about this podcast, reach out via email at lccremix@lifechurchcalvert.com. LCC Remix is a podcast ministry of Life Church Calvert located in Huntingtown, Maryland. You can visit our website, lifechurchcalvert.com, or download our app by searching Life Church Calvert in your app store today.